Right. Also, just like any other day, I got up, I went to work, and now I'm hanging out with two of the most iconic human beings in the Rocky Horror community, period, with my good friends, Aaron and Meg.
Nice treasure. You're really burying the lead here. And not only do we have you and Meg here, we've also got Phil, our wonderful friend from the 8th Street Playhouse.
Hello.
The boy genius.
I'm trying to represent, but you know what? It's such a pleasure to be back on the show.
Thanks, Phil. And I hear that we've got another guest here with us today.
Why, yes, that's true. So, with no delay, let's give it up for the one, the only, Sal Piro.
Who?
Hello, Sal. How you doing?
Hello, guys. My God, what happened to my apartment here? Turned into a recording studio.
You're welcome.
Oh, God.
Indeed, we have strung cables all over Sal's living room, and we are very excited to get to talk to you today, Sal. Thank you for joining us.
Well, everybody kept saying to me, there's this great podcast, and I kept saying, how come nobody's asked me to be on that one?
It just took us some time. Okay, we were scared, we were nervous, and now we're not.
No, don't, please. Don't be afraid. This isn't the Squid Game, okay?
Oh, it's not. I'm out of here.
They're making a second one. Isn't that
Really?
great? Yeah.
Oh, so I think we should kind of jump right into it, and we've got a ton of things that we want to talk about with Sal today.
How about I tell you the first time?
Ooh.
My first time, okay?
Yes, please.
I had a very good friend who I used to sublet from, and we were very good friends. We liked the same movies, and he had seen this movie in the village called the Rocky Horror Picture Show like 4 or 5 times, which meant nothing to me because I've seen other films 20, 30, 40. And I said, we're going to try this out. So I went down with a couple of my friends, one of them, Mark Shaman, who wrote Hairspray and the recent musical on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And we went to see this thing. There was a line outside. It was very early in the run. And we walked in, and it was like we walked into a movie. It was the Waverly in the village, and everybody was it was an excitement in the air. And we loved it so much. I kept thinking, I got to get this album. Where do I find it? In those days, it wasn't like on all the shelves and everything.
Were people dressed up back then?
No. It was it was just starting to happen. The first time I went, there was a rumble in the audience, voices and people cheering and stuff like that. Nothing had started yet. And there was a guy who sat in the front of the balcony named Louis Faris, a kindergarten teacher with a great voice. And Janet came out with the newspaper on her head, and he screamed out, "Buy an umbrella, you cheap bitch." And the place went crazy. And then we'd spend the rest of the week, before we come back to 2 nights of Rocky, we'd spend the rest of the week, what can we say here? What can we say there? And then Dory started coming, and she just wore eye makeup. Mm-hmm. And then, within 2 weeks, she's in full costume and full regalia. And people started doing little bits. Like somebody brought me a big ring, a giant ring, a toy ring. Uh-huh. And I lifted it up, and this is nicer than Betty Monroe had. And just all these little things started creeping in. And everybody was like, oh my God. And the movie started at midnight in the village. And all of a sudden, we were getting there at 8 o'clock just to get the front row seats that we wanted. Mm-hmm. Jory sat in the balcony, I sat in the 5th row on the aisle, and it became a thing. And we all, for those 3.5 hours before they let us into the theater, we just got to know each other. And we started going out to the village and eating lunch and dinner together. And we hung out together like we were like long-lost friends. Mm-hmm. And Rocky was the thing that brought us all together. And I was a little older. I was 25, 26 when this was happening. Everybody else was in their early 20s or late teens. And people started dressing as the characters, and we started doing little comedy bits. And Mark and I would think of all these different lines to shout, or throwing hot dogs at the screen. And all of a sudden, the newspapers started noticing, and they wrote about us, and people were coming down not only to see the movie, which is the reason why we do all this, but also to see us. You know, it was really something.
I think that kind of goes into the very first thing that we actually wanted to ask you, which was, what was like the moment that you saw the floor show expand to fully shadowcasting the film? Like, was there just one specific night that everyone was like, we got to have one specific character, one person playing each character, somebody make a list, or was it just like totally organic?
It's different with the person. Like, for example, Dory was sitting in the balcony, in the front center seat, in the balcony, and the night that she came in the Fierro outfit, she stood out on the balcony, and everybody turned around and put lights on her.
Oh, cool.
And it was cheering and craziness and stuff like that. And then the next week, she got she made the cape and came down to the suite for transvestite in the aisle.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't doing the characters per se. I was doing a little shtick. You know, I had my shabop, shabop, bop thing for Dr. Scott, and it was a big notebook, and I'd make everybody sing shabop, shabop, bop. And so we were doing other than just exact we never really, in the beginning, did the entire film. Mm-hmm. We did mostly the musical numbers because we weren't prepared. The Waverly didn't have a dressing room and stuff like that. And then as people moved to the malls, you know, you had all this storage space. We had nothing like that.
Right.
So that's us now, basically.
Yeah.
At the Village East, we have next to nothing. We have a fire escape in the back of the building, and that's it.
Yep.
It's kind of a return to form.
But look back at those days, and I really miss them, you know? I mean, we had everything all set. We knew what we were going to say at what times. It got a little out of hand, the shouting back to the screen. It got a little vulgar. It didn't need to be vulgar, and I'm not against vulgarity. I can say fuck with the best of it. But...
Are you fucking joking me, Sal?
I am. I'm like Ruth in Ozark. You can't ever stop saying fuck.
We've said far worse on this podcast. You
Yeah.
are fine.
Can't believe I made an Ozark reference. That's streaming for you people who don't know what that is. So it became this thing. We wanted to not really top each other, but add to each other. And initially, we jumped, when Time Warp happened, we just run to the front of the screen and all do the dance. Mm-hmm. Just the normal things to do. But what I did was I jumped in front of them and tap danced as Columbia, just dressed as me.
Sure.
And the next week, a girl came dressed as Columbia. Well, that's your spot, girl. You go take it now. Mm-hmm. And so I went from being the Columbia for the moment to this girl in beautiful costume, stuff like that. And then a couple times we'd have the usual, you know, who was friends with Dory, who was part of Sal's group, and the balcony versus the fifth row. And you know, there'd be more than one magenta, and there'd be jealousy. Dory's friend Robin had to deal with this girl, Maria, who looked better, but Robin was one of the group, and, you know, all that kind of stuff happened. But I never thought when I was 26 years old I would celebrate my 72nd birthday talking about it on a podcast, which I didn't even know what a podcast was.
Happy birthday, Sal.
Thank you. Tomorrow, yes.
You look a day over 20.
20,000.
Now, if I could ask, at this time in your 20s, you were an actor. You were acting and stuff.
Well,
right?
what happened was I was in the seminary studying to be a priest. I know. You could all shrug. And I was studying to be a priest, and I took a leave of absence because I didn't have any money, and I wanted to see what the world was like. And you know what? The world was pretty good. Mm. And I never went back. And I had gotten a role in New York in one of the first gay musicals in New York called Gulp. It was about 6 gay guys on a beach and the lifeguard. And I was the the comedy relief, and so I started. I want to stay in New York. I want to be in the Village. I want to act. I want to be a comedian, and people were very receptive to it. I did some stuff, and then all of a sudden, Rocky started. I went to Rocky, and there was nights like, am I going to do this play or am I going to go to Rocky Horror? And Rocky Horror always seemed to win.
And you were in a play with Nathan Lane too, right?
Oh yeah, we did. There was a theater company in New Jersey called the Halfpenny Playhouse, and Nathan Lane and I were in it. His real name is Joe Lane, and we were in a show together called Anything Goes, the old Cole Porter show, stuff like that. He was the comedy relief. Even then, he was incredibly talented.
I'm sure.
But you've seen him since then. He still remembered you.
Yeah, I saw him at some screening one night. He knew who I was because I think he knew the whole Rocky Horror thing.
The whole Rocky Horror thing.
What's funny is being recognized in the weirdest places. I went online in San Diego once and to see Rocky, and I was just there for seeing San Diego, and all of a sudden somebody recognized me. It was the weirdest thing, and people were like, oh my god.
Oh, well,
and then I had my enemies too. Certain people who dressed as the characters would be enemies with people who were portrayed the same characters they did. But me, it was like, who are you to do Rocky Horror?
Haters gonna hate.
Haters will always hate, as we know from social media. See, I know what social media is, and I know who the Kardashians are, and I can name them in order of age.
Don't be shy.
So, I mean, we're talking about the big whole Rocky Horror thing, right? I mean, and right at the beginning was when, you formed the fan club and, all this. Was there like a big catalyst that kind of told you like, somebody needs to organize this, somebody should be me, I should,
Well, this is what happened. We were sitting around one week getting ready for Rocky. And we said, what would be great? We need to have a convention because, there were Star Trek conventions and all that. We need a convention. And then we were all sitting around, well, how do we do that? I said, maybe we need to start an organization, like a fan club or something, so we can make some money to run a convention. So we did that, and a group of us met on a weeknight at somebody's house, and we decided to have like an election and said, but I was a little older and I had already started the whole thing with the fan club with them and stuff like that. And it came down to like I was running against Dory, and Dory said, I don't want to do that. She didn't want to be fan club president. She just wanted to be Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave it to me, which I took easily because I always like to be an organizer. And so we started the fan club. And what was interesting then, because we didn't have any money, we charged. Mm-hmm. It was $3 for half a year and $4 for half a year, $7 for a year. And the third week, we got a letter from Australia, with money in the envelope.
Right.
We were like, okay.
It was Australian money?
No, it was American. I remember that.
You get it, you're like, I don't know what to do with this.
You're going to make me pay the currency conversion?
Because this was before PayPal would do it for you.
Yeah, right?
So we started this thing to run a convention, mm-hmm. which we wound up doing years later, and that's another story. But we made me the president, and then nobody else wanted to do it. So I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And then, Lou asked me to do Creatures of the Night.
So this is Lou Adler stepping up.
Oh, right, Lou Adler, the producer, the grand poobah of Rocky Horror. I'll tell you, he really was a very smart, he still is, very smart man. He marketed Rocky in just the way not to overdo it. Mm-hmm. And allowed certain, immediately of course there were T-shirts and things, but they didn't sell Rocky Horror toilet paper yet or anything like that. And he really kept the movie good. And I appreciate it. And we've become, over the years, good friends. He's a really smart man, and I appreciate it. And I was a big fan of the Mamas and the Papas, so Lou Adler was always in my head, always.
And Cheech and Chong, too. It's one of the other
Yeah, not always in my head. Although I do have a favorite Cheech and Chong joke. Well, it's from one of their albums where they say, Mexican Americans go to night school, take Spanish, and get a B.
I have a lot of identification with that. Well, Puerto Rican American. And Puerto Rican Haitian.
No, they were all right. I wasn't into the whole pop culture, and stuff like that. But the Mamas and the Papas,
Yeah, we just a couple weeks ago we did a episode about Lou and the Roxy and the Sunset Strip and all of his stuff there, and I was fascinated to find out just how ingrained he was into LA music culture.
Oh my God, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
right?
Oh my God, he's amazing. I mean, when you think of three things: Carole King, Rocky Horror, Cheech and Chong, and then Rocky Horror. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Anybody else had one of those credits, they'd be great. He's got 4 major credits.
Right. On top of everything at the Whiskey A Go and all that crazy stuff.
Sorry, I'm secretly trying to direct from behind.
Have you ever seen, Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains?
You actually made me see that movie, Uncle Sal.
And how great is that movie?
Yeah, it is so awesome. I remember when it first came out, it was at the film forum or something like that, and you said, it's important, like, you go see this film. There was like a couple of films you always said, go see this film. Like Paris is Burning, you said, go see this film.
Oh, Paris is Burning.
There's always a film
But the good thing about Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, Diane Lane, as a teenage girl, and they have a rock band, We're the Stains, and We Don't Put Out. And it was all about these people coming to see them at the malls, dressed as them. So it had that Rocky connection.
So tangential to this stuff, and specifically to some of the early, I'll call it tumultuous kind of stuff around the fan club and everything with that. I know you've touched on this in Creatures, the fan club wars, Adam Sargis, all of this kind of nonsense. I'll bring it up. I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I'm curious.
That's fine. Adam Sargis was somebody who was very much into marketing and selling stuff and stuff like that. And he hooked up with me in the beginning because we didn't know any of that stuff about, But the problem is, it just, what happened was we were getting all the publicity. He wasn't. And I had many fights with the owner of the 8th Street Playhouse. He was so jealous of the fame we made. And I said, you know what? I'd rather have the $1 million you made showing this movie for the last 5 years.
Honestly.
Than people saying, oh, he's funny, I mean, he came in one night and he goes, who the hell is your press agent? And I went like this. I said, somebody who started the cult that everybody's watching all around the world, or somebody who owns a movie theater. Hello?
Right.
I said, meanwhile, and I did. I said, I'd rather take the money you made, really. But anyway, he passed on. He actually had somebody almost kill me once.
Really?
Yeah, this is a true story. I don't really share this, but I feel like it.
Yo, go for it.
Here's the glass of wine I had.
Somebody get this man more wine.
The 10th anniversary, through Lou and through Fox, was at the Beacon Theater. And it was on a Thursday night, which happened to be Halloween. And Steve was reaping the benefits of all these Rocky fans being in New York, because I got Richard and Pat and Nell to come to 8th Street Friday and Saturday. He didn't have to pay them. The place was packed.
Wow.
And stuff like that. He said to me, well, how come you're doing it I said, because we have 3,000 people coming and you only hold 500. That's why it's at the at Beacon. Sure. And he was like, so he goes up to one of his security guards, big guy. His nickname was Animal or something like that.
It is never a good thing when somebody goes up to somebody whose nickname is Animal
and
points at you while talking to them.
Actually, though, it just has a nice ending. Steve said to him, gave him $100 and some pills. He said, put those pills in Sal's drink right before he goes on stage. And he want me, drugless. If I had taken those pills, I would have freaked out on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy happened to, Animal, or whoever he was, happened to like me. And he said, so he said, you know what? He told me the whole story. He said, I kept the pills in them.
Good.
And then Steve had a record weekend.
Right, made a ton of money anyway.
This is why you are always friends with the security guard named Animal. This is exactly why you make friends with him. So you've answered like millions of fan club letters in your time. Like you wrote the book on the phenomenon, like not to mention the trivia game, so much else, you know? Yeah. But is there anything out there that is still like nagging at you, something that you wish that you had solved or you had known more about?
Well, I think Phil will tell you this, that some of the letters we used to get were unbelievable. Remember I'm going to tell you a story about this woman. If somebody wrote me a lot, and I could say they were obsessed with Richard, or I would throw an extra picture in their newsletter and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there was this one girl, crazy for Tim Curry. Mm-hmm. Crazy. She was nuts. She was from Oklahoma or something. And I'd send her pictures of Tim, and she'd write me back, oh, thank you so much, thank you, I love it, I love it, I love it. And so then one day she sends me a picture. She had a nose job to have Tim's nose. Ooh. And I thought, oh, okay. So I thought, oh, this is strange. Well, then a year later, or 6 months later or something like that, she writes me to thank me for all that I had done for her, giving her Tim pictures and stuff like that. But she's no longer into Tim. She has somebody new.
Oh, no.
Martina Navratilova. I was like, what? I just spent 3 years writing to this girl who's in love with Tim Curry, and she switches over to Martina Navratilova? I thought, this is the craziest thing I ever heard. We stopped writing her.
I wonder how much it was to get her nose to be looking like Martina.
We had so much fun, though, reading the letters. Oh, yeah. Because some of them were obsessive.
Oh, yeah, sure. And this was a time really before the internet was big, I mean, or even existed, because when people had questions and people had literally to write in about it.
Yeah, yeah. And we would answer. I had Phil and Karen and Margot, and they would actually answer letters. People write back, go, I can't believe you actually answered us in ink.
Oh, in the beginning, I remember back in the days, people used to go upstairs, and you would be sitting there like kind of doing fan club work, or like folding and putting in buttons and stuff like that upstairs, and then it became a thing in your house, like just folding, putting, and just sending.
This is my living room. This is my bathroom. This is my folding and putting room.
And cards. Everybody was like, oh, my card is number 4711. Am I the only one that has that number?
Sure you are.
I thought the card would be really cool if everybody had 4711 on it. Because who's going to remember who's number 7,630?
Sure.
Or anything like that. And how many times do we have to answer that? No, you're not the same 4711.
I'm the luckiest person. I'm the luckiest.
You'd be amazed. It took me forever to find one of those on eBay that wasn't 4711. Cost me a fortune. No. All the fan club letters, all of it, like, I mean, it's the primary sources that I use a lot for all the stuff that we do on the podcast and we talk about. So I have
primary sources over here.
Yeah. So a very large collection of all that stuff, but nothing close to all of it, and I slowly keep piecing it all together because it's the history that's there. So,
well, you know what's interesting is I got older. I certainly keep certain pictures and stuff like that, but I can't keep out. You know, I'm ready to clean out storage, but I think all my Rocky stuff is. I went to different conventions, and the actual fans who ran those individual conventions didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. So what we would do was to pay for my trip. I'd just do an auction at Rocky, and I would throw in, you know, some autographs and things like that, and we'd do an auction or a raffle, and one group from what state they were from, Michigan or something. I went to their thing, and they were going to be in the hole for money. And I said, I'll make you some money. I put together a little bunch of real collectibles, and we had what they call a Chinese auction. Do you know what that is?
What is that?
It's amazing. What you do is you just keep having people bid. Say you bid $5. I say, all right, we'll start the bidding at $5. And say you bid $5. You got to put the $5 in my thing. If you're the last person to put money in my pocket, you win the whole thing. So then he'll give me $5, and he'll give me $5, and now I've got like $100. I say, okay, now we're going to give the prize to whoever gives me $10, and everybody's next thing you know, the group is running this thing has $1,000 that I made for them. They came and they said, "Oh my God, you saved our life." I said, "We're all in this together." You know?
I always remember the first convention I ever went to was, I think, AC 08. And I think you were there because I remember you held a raffle.
Yeah,
and we're calling it out.
Larry ran that one.
Yeah, that was one of Larry's. Always enjoyed listening to.
I remember
Sal
that
calling
convention because my sister went to it, and me, Larry, and my sister all wound up at the same craps table.
How'd you guys do?
What?
How'd you do?
We won that night, and I said to the ladies, "You're ahead. Stop."
Better than I did that convention. I think I got thrown out of that casino. You were in charge of the fan club for over 40 years, you know? So is there one thing that you could pick out as like, what was the most ambitious, like logistically complicated thing? You know, what was the craziest thing that you look back on and go, I don't know how we pulled that off?
I think, one of the things I could say with that is the audience participation album.
Oh, okay.
Because what happened was Lou wanted to do soundtrack of the film with the shouting. So we booked a recording studio, and I stood like at the top as the teacher and behind the podium, and I go, okay, on the count of 3, scream asshole. And then asshole. And okay, on the count of 4, say, slut or whatever, So they made this thing, and then they flew me out to California and made me sit there and listen to it, and it was so static. It was like so asshole, slut.
Oh,
it
no.
was like it was crazy. And Howard Frank, who's Lou's nephew, who was actually produced that album, he and I sat down, and then with Lou, of course, and Lou said, "This isn't working. So the best thing to do is let's go to the theater and actually film it happening," which we should have done from the beginning, you know? And it was so much different and so more, it sounded real because it was real.
More organic.
Yeah, it's so weird to think that they just decided to be like, all right, well, let's take this like super New York at this point, like super New York, super like gritty reality of what Rocky Horror is and what like being a part of an audience participation show is, and let's put it in a recording studio with like these fancy mics, this fancy mixing table, this fancy X, Y, and Z, and totally strip it of what makes it unique. Like, why not just go to the theater and
Exactly.
Did you do it in a special theater, or did you do it in did you play it in a?
We did it at 8th Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was at 8th Street. And before that, when we were doing that static one, it was in some recording studio. But no, that didn't work. And so you learn things over the years. People didn't appreciate. Fox would sell the rights to certain products and stuff like that, or books, but the people who were buying the rights didn't know anything, and Fox didn't know anything, so they would give them my phone number or somebody from the group, and then they expected us to do it for free. Like, there's one company that was like, "We're going to do the Super 8 version of Rocky." Okay, all right, this is way in the beginning. And he said, "But we're only allowed to do 23 minutes of the movie. So I need somebody who's going to help me edit the film." I basically told them what were the most important things to include in the 23, 24 minutes. And then I said to him, well, how much am I getting paid for this? He looked at me like I was like a freak. And I said, what? He said, well, we were going to buy you lunch. I said, no, you weren't going to buy me lunch. Well, yeah, I'll take the lunch, but...
You're also going to pay
you're also
me.
going to pay me. And it was $50, but it was still money.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how they took the fans for granted. Some people did. Other people, would treat us like we were royalty, so, And what was interesting was that some of the people within the cast had their own fan clubs or fans, Yeah, I mean, Dory really was it. People loved her because when she came close to you, you actually felt you were with Frank, and she could do his voice perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember back to that 10th anniversary when she sang, and just like the first time I had, because I was normally like an 8th reader, like Dory had not, and then when Dory came and sung, I was just like, holy smokes.
What you do, I'm going home, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, and it was like the whole audience, everybody just stopped.
And Dory had an album, and one of her songs was played in The Sopranos, and her album was great. And
Is this Blue Gin?
What?
Blue Gin. That's one of her
Blue
albums.
Gin was the album.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good thing about it was that Dory and I were always friends. We never had a problem or anything like that. I mean, she acted like Frank. There were times I'd see her get mad at somebody. She was Frank,
So you talked all about the first, we always hear about Louis Farisi and the first stuff there and how you guys were evolving, some of that stuff at the very beginning. What was some of like the most heinous things that people tried to throw or that people tried to scream, or is there any that you were just like, I wish that one had caught on. I loved that.
Well, Mark and I were the ones throwing the hot dog, and we got in trouble for that. They were like, it's bringing rats into the theater. Stop it. And we were like, and you know what? That time we didn't have any money, so it was like we had to go out and buy a dozen hot dogs. It was expensive.
Yeah.
So that didn't go over. And the big thing, which kind of really made the whole announcements and emceeing stuff, came from the fact of the lighting of the candles or the matches. And that was when the Waverly came up to me and said, look, we're going to have to close this movie down. We can't have open flames while people are high and they have newspapers on their head, which makes sense, So they said, you seem to be one of the few people that has everybody under control. So they said, tonight you need to make an announcement. No candles, nothing like that. So the woman, I remember the woman, she managed the theater, an old German woman named Denise Borden. She was great. And so that night, while everybody was just hanging out, I said, excuse me. You all know that I'm here and I love this movie just like you do. And they all went, yeah. And I said, but they're going to close us down. Bring flashlights, bring anything else, but don't open any flames during Rocky because they will close us down. And that night, not a single flame was opened, and the place cheered. And Denise Borden said to me, "Good. Now you do that every week. You get up there and do it." So here I am with an audience. I was like, "Oh, okay. Why don't we celebrate somebody's 15 times singing it, or happy birthday, it's Phil's birthday or something like that." And it became the thing, became being the MC. It was just as important as dressing as a character,
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite things to do.
It is 100% my favorite thing to do. Like every single time I get casted, I'm like, cool, I'm playing Frank, or cool, I'm playing Rip. But when I see myself under host, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then
you can do anything you want.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And then when I get casted as MC and Frank, through the roof. My ego is so astronomically high that evening, you can't beat it. And it's funny that you say that, back then you had issues with people bringing open flames to shows, where almost 50 years later we have the same damn problem. It's like, it's been 50 years. Y'all haven't learned this yet? That you should not have an open flame inside? Yeah, there's a flashlight in your pocket now.
Take out your phone, man.
Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't have those in those days.
Yeah, you had to actually go home and get a flashlight and bring it. Everyone has one now, and they still lighters.
The amount of effort it would take to go get candles,
Right?
to have them.
Well, flashlights work too.
Yeah.
God, I remember those when we started carrying all that. And we'd go to the movies carrying bags of groceries.
What was kind of the first thing that you were like, okay, we're an organization kind of now, like I've started doing this, like what was the first big purchase that you were like, this is for the cast? Did you guys buy microphones or a prop piece?
No, we everybody brought their own props and carried them home. Like I said, we had no thing at the Waverly. And because of that, we never in the early days did the entire film.
Right.
Never. And when we were the cast on stage of the 10th anniversary, I can remember somebody from another cast up in the balcony yelling down at us when it was all over and people were leaving. What's the matter, 8th Street? Don't you do the whole movie? Meanwhile, whoever they were.
Oh, that's funny.
I can remember that. That I remember. God. It's great when you're having a chat session and then all of a sudden something triggers something else. Yeah. God.
When did you start doing the whole movie?
Probably when we moved to... Where did we went to 55th Street after 8th Street.
There was the 55th Street Theater, and then we went to back to 8th Street, but the other little NYU 8th Street Theater afterwards. So we were between and then to Village East.
Yeah, it was something 8th Street it was called.
Movieland 8th Street. So there was Movieland 8th Street, which was good because actually a former Rocky, Howie was the manager from that theater. I remember back in the days.
Oh, so that was an easy slide in. Nice.
Well, there was various different people that he knew there was an evolution of all related Rocky people that are always infiltrating theaters.
Well, that's how we got back at the Village East too, was because there was somebody there who was familiar with the phenomenon, familiar with how to manage a theater with a Rocky cast in it. So it was just kind of it was a no-brainer once they found that we were looking for a theater for NYC.
I remember all those different moves, and we had to break in the employees of the theater.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, you had to let them know. Oh, and especially the security, because I always talk about there was that one person at the Movieland 8th Street East. There was this one guy, I remember he had a mustache, and he really he was kind of former cop, and he was just would destroy our microphones, literally just pull out the microphones, and we were doing good, literally Little Nell just came there, everything is didn't matter, I hate you guys, I hate you.
Oh yeah, a lot of people hated us at the theaters, the owners and different things like that.
Oh, hold on, but wait a second. I remember there was that time back in the days where people used to just show up just to fight, wanted to start trouble.
Well, when we had the big riot at the Waverly, one of my early comedy bits was playing Janet in a brown slip, and I came, what's happening here? And I come down the end, people would go crazy. It's in the Rocky Horror book, the original Rocky Horror book. And there was a gang that hung out in the village that didn't like all the attention we were getting. We were stopping traffic and stuff like that. And one night, they got me into the theater early because they were out to kill the guy in the bra.
Different world.
Thank God Ron DeSantis wasn't mayor of New York at the time. Right. Did I say that?
Oops.
No, do you hear about the drag queen thing? He's going to arrest any parents who take their kids to a drag show.
Oh yeah, so this is Florida.
Well, excuse me, Shakespeare was a drag show.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me, Rocky Horror is a drag show.
Literally, Shakespeare had his son in drag. Hamnet, I think it was his son's name.
You heard it first here, folks. Sal Piro says don't move to Florida.
Feel bad for the cast out there.
Yeah, right.
But we're talking a lot about like the drama that you had to kind of endure, whether it was like internal cast or external gangs trying to, pull one over on you. But like, in your opinion, what was like the spiciest cast specific drama that happened while you were in charge? What's the tea,
You
Sal?
gotta understand, I was aging, and I was now, especially when we got into our big fame, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Everybody else was 17. And
We know the feel. We trust me. We know that feel.
And Phil will tell you, I didn't get involved in any of that stuff.
Yeah. It's so funny because in the beginning, like everybody was into the gossip. So remember gossip with the agents of gossip. Where it was like getting only
Spicy stories is paramount. We had a joke where we sat up in the balcony. It was my sister and I, and Justin, and certain people, and we Kathy, David and Jimmy, and we would sit there and just tease all these young kids and stuff like that. And we called ourselves GOSSIP. Getting only spicy stories is paramount.
Right. And sometimes there would be announcements, or people would send in blind articles or something like that when you would read it out loud right before the show. So there was always added stuff to the pre-show. That's why those pre-shows were just
the pre-shows were great. We actually had everybody dressed and did We Are the World.
Oh, neat.
Phil, you did the dentist number from.
Oh yeah, I did dentist with Amanda and her sister Courtney, and I remember we did Dancing in the Streets with me and Madman Mike.
That's right. And then what was his name? Ed.
Oh, you and Ed.
Ed was a funny-looking guy, but hysterically funny, black guy, and he and I put on wigs. And we did Enough is Enough, Barbara Streisand and Donna Summer. It brought the house down.
Really did. Like there was always this little. We were like competing. I don't even know what we were competing for, like prizes or something. Like, it was just for fun. And like each week, it would be like little lip sync contests, and that one just won everything. It was done.
When we were in 55th Street, I started this thing called the Posse Olympics, and it was all my favorites, like Phil and Margot and all these people. And they led me down the aisle when I was introduced, and we used the Absolutely Fabulous theme. Absolutely. And I came down and I said, we should have a contest, and who's the best of the posse? And I would say, okay, tonight it's Phil versus Margot. Okay, you're going to get 1 point for the person who can collect the most condoms in the audience. And they're going around with them, give us condoms, or pennies.
It would always be something like that. And it was a way to kind of like, you were the main high mucky mutt, but it gave a chance to give all the other members of the cast a chance to shine.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing that, all of those fun things to entertain the cast, before the show, and all of that kind of stuff has kind of, over the years, evolved into the absolutely crazy, overly complicated pre-show numbers that, we have a whole segment for them at the upcoming RKOCon where they're doing, all that stuff. And that just like, what started as that became way too over-engineered.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was lip sync contests, and now it is fully orchestrated, acrobatic.
Some of the ones we did at the like 20th, 25th anniversary, those contests were unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
all different casts.
They rented trucks and brought props down, and it's amazing. I love that. They did. Remember, there was that one cast in California that did. They did a whole Rocky thing with Dangerous Minds. That was one of the most creative things I had ever seen. It was incredible.
Oh yeah, song parodies, things like that.
Another thing from the early days, one of the most important parts of Rocky to me and our cast is, of course, just like hanging out, getting around to fuck around with everybody. We've kind of had to evolve, where we're hanging out over the venue moves. We go to a different bar, we go to a different thing. What was like your favorite place to go, like after the show and hang out?
Tiffany's in the Village. It was a coffee shop, and my sister and Jennifer and a whole bunch of us would go there every week, and Tiffany's was like my regular diner because I lived in the Village for a while, and we started this thing where we'd buy a cupcake, This is 3:00 in the morning. We'd buy a cupcake and put a candle in it and get up and go to a random table and sing happy birthday to somebody and give them the candle. And people were like, I said, it's a birthday festival. And finally the owner said to me, no more birthday festivals. No more. I'm like, you're getting a sale. I'm buying a cupcake. But we had a good time. Some of the more rambunctious of the group went to that S&M place.
Oh, right. Ninth Circle? Or, wait. Hellfire Club.
Hellfire Club.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't about to participate with the Rocky kids there. So.
Fair.
In fact, one of the woman who was she was the ticket taker at the 8th Street Playhouse. She was a big thing at Hellfire. She was a big old mama, and her son was an usher. I was totally embarrassed to see his mother, like, playing around with these kids.
So, point blank, tell us about your favorite ducklings.
My favorite what?
What are ducklings? Just like the little the little people that kind of were around you when you were head honcho. People that would do anything and everything. They would drop whatever they wanted to do whatever you needed done.
And you take them under your wing.
We're not talking about a sexual angle here.
Not even close.
Okay. No, because the thing is, I was very lucky. I'm proud of the fact that I'm attracted to old men. No, I am. I've never had a problem with a kid. Because I'm not interested in them. And because I was Sal, I honestly did have kids coming after me. And I'm not even a hand around the shoulder. You have to be careful. I didn't treat them as if they were just doing things for me. If I really, really liked them, like Phil is one of my all-time favorite people, and so is Margot. Right on. And I haven't seen Karen in ages, but Karen would be too. These certain people, and of course my sister was there for years. Right. But
it was just like you take, and I will say for the record, as a person that grew up working for the fan club and things like that, like I really didn't have a lot of like parental guidance kind of a thing, and I looked to Sal and the Rocky people kind of like a family kind of things, and by taking me under the wing, I feel like I've grown up to be a decent human being, and I learned a lot of values from Rocky Horror. So if anybody wants to say anything, take that, Florida. I'm just not saying Florida personally, Ron DeSantis.
But if I did like somebody, male or female, if I really, really liked them, like their personality, I liked what they could do, I would take them under my wing. Justin was under my wing for years. And let me tell you, we had some funny stuff. He was a natural comic, and made him queen of the theater once. Get up! He's standing there with a sword. Get up, you bitches! I'm the queen. and he did. Richard O'Brien was there, and he did a Vanna White routine with Richard's name turning around the vowels.
Oh, right. There's a picture of that in the book.
In Creatures of the Night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I certain people. I love Stana. Remember Stana? Sure. But Phil, Margot, and Karen are
the main.
And Dawn used to help a lot. Yeah. And Joe's girlfriend. What was Joe's girlfriend's name? Oh, right. They opened up that lizard shop in Florida. Right. Joe was the one who made my cape. Yeah. Famous cape.
Famous airbrush cape. And also was giving out early tattoos. So I know Madman Mike got an early tattoo. Everybody, he was trying out the tattooing thing. That's where I got my first tattoo from him too. So.
Oh, very cool.
And I think he might have passed away. So. God rest him.
Well, speaking of your cape, actually, since it came up, I have a question here that's about like your favorite piece of Rocky, ephemera, memorabilia, just kind of what's your most treasured thing or something that got away from you that maybe you wish you still had?
Oh, you're really gonna get upset with this story.
I love making Aaron mad, so I'm here for this.
Let's just say I'll tell you what happened to it before I tell you what it was. I was given something as a gift, and That's when my friend Alex was involved in the fan club and helping us with fail a convention and all that. And this piece of memorabilia was actually in Alex's house. And Alex didn't take it. There was nothing like that. But they had come and cleaned out Alex's house, family divorce or something like that. And I think it got thrown out. You ready? The criminologist Jack.
Oh, son of a bitch!
Rest in peace. That really hits home for Aaron specifically because he loves playing Crim.
I do love playing
Imagine
Crim.
being able to play Crim in the jacket itself.
After we do this, I'm going to show you my Charles Gray collection.
Oh, yes.
Ooh. You have my attention.
So the vibe is that Aaron is the person who is like very much into like the history of Rocky Horror, the memorabilia side from it, and then I'm the one who's hot, right? and it's funny because that has nothing to do with the podcast because nobody sees my face. It's a real shame. So we're gonna let Aaron do a lot of this, but I'm gonna ask you the first one. So in the early days, like a huge portion of the fan club contributions and content was in the form of fan fiction and other like derivative works, things that were not necessarily canon to Rocky. Is there a story that you remember that fit in super neatly or had such a unique angle that it's practically canon to you in the Rocky universe?
I hate to disappoint you, but I was never into the fan fiction thing.
Good, me neither.
I was just purely into Rocky, you know? I mean, certain other movies I'm obsessed with, too. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, La Cage aux Folles. They all seem to involve drag in some way. But now, Phil, you did a Disney version of it, or Simpsons version.
I did the Simpsons one. Yeah, that made it into the book, so I was glad that one.
I just saw that the other day. I was flipping through. Yeah.
He did all the Rocky casts as the Simpsons.
Did that under the Nom de Plume Esquire.
That was, I was flipping through the other day. That's when I found your Rocky audience demographics thing.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for finding that, man.
And I used Phil's artwork in both of my books, so both of the Creatures books.
And also, you played a like whenever we were doing things for other stuff, because I remember we were doing a promo for Dead Alive. You also hired me for that too, so I was just.
Oh, that's right. And you didn't do Jungle Bus, did you?
No, I did not.
Some guy made this terrible movie called Jungle Bus. It was an amateur, but he said maybe you can make it into another Rocky Horror. So like he hired me. People came up to me afterwards and said, "Really, Sal?" He was a nice guy, you know. Who knew?
You can't make a Rocky, like, you know, it just happens. It's like that thing for The Room. Like, The Room came out and everybody's like, oh, okay. Like, people started going to that because they wanted to see how theoretically bad it was. So then it became a thing. So when, like Rocky, it became a thing.
Yeah, it became a thing. You never know what's going to become a thing. I'm watching this thing on HBO now called The Baby. Mm-hmm. The baby's a murderer.
Oh! Spoilers! I was just about to...
smiles the whole time. Never looks evil. You never see the baby kill. And you watch this thing go, oh... But it's interesting what turns you on and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, like, when Rocky was going... I guess this was later on, when we were over at 23rd Street, I remember that... what was that stripper movie they were trying to make into the next Rocky?
Oh,
Showgirls?
Not a stripper movie. It was Showgirls.
Showgirls, yeah.
Showgirls. I went one night. I left Rocky to go. I had to see it. And you know what? There were a couple of cute ideas, but they were forcing it down your throat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think they had Head of Lettuce introducing it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you really kind of camp it up, but
Head is very talented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the closest I think that any studio has come, right, is like Repo, the Genetic Opera. The Room does really well now, although that wasn't intentional at all. You know?
Yeah, it's when it's not intentional. That's like Rocky. It wasn't intentional for it to be so.
Have you sat through the whole Room?
Unfortunately, yes.
Several times, yeah. We do it. They do it at RKOCon, so that's my like get trashed and during that one.
It's also the cast's version of get trashed and perform.
You took out Repo Man?
Repo the Genetic. It's a musical adaptation of the same story that Repo Man is.
Okay, yeah.
It's also horrible. Not a huge fan.
Now then you get somebody like John Waters. Every one of his movies, every one of them, has lines that you could shout at them. It has everything. And Mink Stoll, Margot actually was the stage manager for a show that Mink Stoll did, and I got to go backstage and meet Mink Stoll.
Wow.
I was like, oh, because Desperate Living is my favorite John Waters film.
You know, John Waters, he just really understands trash. I mean, I don't mean it like it's true. I don't mean like trash. All right, but he just understands what the pulse of, you know, to give the people the thing, to do the thing. And he's not trying. It's like David Lynch. Like, David Lynch does his thing and everybody goes, huh. And
he would find these interesting people and put them in his entourage and then just make magic with them. I mean, the thing is, Female Trouble, oh my God. When they're all sitting in the school and they go, oh, Mr. Weinberger, Dawn Davenport is eating a meatball hero in class and she's passing notes. And then they're in the bathroom and they say, what are you getting for Christmas? Well, you know what I like to do. I like to take the presents back and get the money. You can do that, you know.
I mean, it's really difficult, right, to manufacture something that hits like that, you know, like, and I mean, Fox kind of tried with shock treatment, you know, to kind of recapture, you know, the kind of thing.
It was really a stretch trying to do shock treatment.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
I had a lot of fun though, going to London and actually being there on the set and doing my little mini cameo where you can't even see me. But the reason for that was because I wasn't a member of the union, so they couldn't give me any kind of featured thing. So they put me on a phone and they said just turn around, and it was okay. I got to hang out with Charles. I got to hang out with Ruby Wax, who was amazing in that movie.
Oh yeah. Was it your favorite compared to like Fame and doing the remake, you know, just recently?
oh yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I never thought of that. What was my favorite that I participated in? Oh, it has to be Fame. You know why? Because when I was a kid, and the reason why I know so much about show business is I read the credits. I did everything. When I was a kid, every movie, every TV show, you know, I can name the whole cast of My Little Margie right now. Most people go, what, My Little Margie? What? Some sitcom in the 50s. It was the summer replacement series for Lucy. Anyway, but there'd be all these different things that I would love, and I'd love to read the credits. And at the end of Fame, while we're sitting in the theater, and the credits come up, and I saw my name, gave me the biggest kick, biggest thrill that I had. I'm in the credits, you know.
With a speaking role.
Who needs a union?
And that actually happens. I mean, some guy yelled at me from the theater the night that Alan Parker was there. So get on with he was like, what? I thought I was coming to see him. Get on with the show. And I said, this is the fucking show. And the place went nuts. And Alan Parker said to me, I loved what you did to that audience member. I'm writing it into the movie. Because I went to they invited me to do auditions for Fame. And I said, why am I here? There were 20 16-year-olds there and 10 16-year-olds there. And me, but they were all reading from scripts. And I was sitting by nothing in my hands. And the guy said to me, look, he goes, I want you in the movie. I want you to play the MC of the thing. And so I was basically reproducing something I had done in real life. Yeah, no, Fame is it. Yeah. And it's a great movie.
It is. I would have never watched it if not for Rocky. I mean, that's why I sought it out, was because your bit in it, and just like, oh yes, this is the movie that's brought Rocky to, you know, mainstream box offices kind of thing, you know, to get people aware of it.
So a lot of movies try to get that Rocky flavor in there, like Perks of a Wallflower.
Perks of Being a Wallflower, yeah.
Trying to get that Rocky.
Yeah, it's mid. So seeing your name in the credits for Fame was like one of like your highlights just in the Rocky, the Rocky universe that you have existed. But like, let's narrow it down to be something like physical, like what is your most treasured piece of Rocky memorabilia, and like what's the story behind it?
It was probably the jacket that I told you about.
No.
Having it. And you know what was interesting about it was it was a little bit off color because of the lights while they were filming it. It looks like black, right? No.
Yeah, it's like a very dark gray with black lapels kind of thing.
It was in real life. It was a lighter gray.
Really?
Yeah.
Looks like you're gonna have to get a new one, Aaron.
Yeah, it looks like. Oh, that's fantastic. And you had Janet's dress for a while too, right?
Yes, and I think we auctioned it. Oh yeah, we auctioned it off to make money for a convention that was losing money. Mm-hmm. Those auctions really come in handy.
Yeah, right. That's the big takeaway if you're.
Okay, I'm wondering if I should give you this scoop. It's a real scoop.
Ooh, do it. Do
you know that for years, when we did Willie and Phil, which was a little cameo at the end, the whole cast was standing in front of a movie theater. It was directed by Paul Mazursky, and my friend Alex was good friends with Jill Mazursky, and I've known Jill Mazursky since she's a little girl. Paul Mazursky is a famous director. He directed Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyway, Jill called me about 7 or 8 years ago while I was out at Fire Island and said, Sal. I said, Jill, what are you calling me for? And she said, I just bought your books, Creatures of the Night, on eBay or something. Mm-hmm. And Sal, it's a movie. It's definitely a movie. And I said to her, really? She goes, yeah, that's what I do now. I find properties to produce. Anyway, Creatures of the Night has been in development for like 7 or 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And we're closer now than we have been.
Really?
Well, because they found a director. He's unknown, but he's from England. He directed a marvelous series on HBO. And they found somebody who wants to play me. They're not going to have the whole cast. There's going to be a Dory. There's going to be a Sal. There's going to be a Mark.
Oh,
My
wow.
sister will be in it as a little girl. And Ben Platt wants to play me.
No way.
At 26.
Evan Hansen wants to play Sal Piro.
That's amazing. Wow.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
We have a producer. We have a director. There was a wonderful show that was on HBO maybe 6 months to a year ago about young guys in the 80s in England dying of AIDS. Mm-hmm. And this guy's a marvelous director, and he wants to... So it looks like... But again, we're talking 2 years away.
Oh, sure. That's fantastic. So, like, who wrote the adaptation? Did somebody come along and do like a whole like screen-written adaptation kind of thing for it? Or?
Oh, there's a script.
Wow.
Yeah, it follows the story of these young people. You know, they make reference. There's a reference to me in the very beginning where my mother's picking me up. It looks like she's picking me up at jail, and we're fighting in the car. And she said, "I don't want to take this crap from you anymore." And she drives away, and you see that wasn't the jail I was in; it was the seminary. And then they show Mark, they show Dory dressing up in the mirror and stuff like that, and these characters all come together and start Rocky Horror.
Oh wow! Now that's a film I'd go see.
Yeah,
every time.
Hold it. Is it going to be a mini-series or just a movie?
They're going to take whatever they can get. If Netflix offers them a series.
Oh yeah, now that we're talking.
But no, they really want it to be a theater show.
Imagine if they put out a movie and then there was audience participation and a cast.
There would have to
casting it.
There would have to be, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody playing Ben Platt, playing Sal.
And then, of course, you know what conventions everybody's going to want to do, and everybody's going to start.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have to start auditioning for it. And it's going to be.
Could you imagine if we got a
I'm
proper
going to
Rocky
that
movie?
Creatures of the Night convention.
A convention for wow. Yep.
I'm throwing it. Let's do it. We gotta waste the New York cast fund on something.
Yep.
Wow.
So did your podcast like it's Scoop?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going like, it's not out yet. Are you? You're the man. So is it just the wine talking, or are you gonna be like, wait a second? It is the ultimate scoop.
This is so cool. I'm blown away. And so looking forward to it. Thank you. That's so cool.
Actually, they were asking me who would you like to play you, and back when she first said 7 years ago, I said Jonah Hill. I thought Jonah Hill would be a good choice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
actually
you know who they
absolutely
thought for a while too? Eugene Levy's son from Schitt's Creek,
Yep.
Oh, okay.
who I really think would be the best, but he's gotten older now.
So I need a more sassier version.
Talk about a show that blew me for a loop. When I saw the ad for it originally, Schitt's Creek, I went, oh, this is what I need to see, not. And my friend, I have a friend who only sees like Maggie Smith movies, said to me, oh, Sal, you got to see Schitt's Creek. It's wonderful. I said, from you? I can't believe this, you know. I mean, this guy follows Vanessa Redgrave around. So I said, okay, well, I'll try it. I can't believe how good Schitt's Creek is.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And I liked him. I thought the son, because I usually, having been in the gay world and worked at Fire Island and all that, sometimes people playing gay characters kind of get on my nerves because I've seen it all, you know?
Sure.
But I thought this guy is different, you know? He's really, there's something about him that there's a real intelligence behind his performance. But I'm happy with Ben Platt if that's where it goes.
Yeah, that's an awesome casting.
Yeah. That'd be amazing. I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it.
How do you, yet again, I feel like this is the third time we've said this, but how do you follow that up?
Yeah, this episode is just like keeps giving.
Well, we can follow up a hot upcoming property with some lukewarm, never made properties.
That sounds delicious.
Are we talking about sequel?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Revenge of the Old Queen, the cartoons that were supposed to be made at some point. I didn't know if you know anything about any of this stuff.
Some of the things like the cartoon that was a Showtime thing was possibly going to happen, never happened. Revenge of the Old Queen we thought for sure was going to happen, and they turned that into Shock Treatment. And Shock Treatment, well, that's because they knew they weren't going to get Tim Curry, and so they made Janet and Brad the centerpiece. You know, I love Shock Treatment. I think they're some of my favorite. I love the woman who plays Janet. She was great in Phantom of the Paradise.
Jessica Harper, yeah.
She's amazing. And I love some of those songs and, you know, Denton and all that stuff. I got to be there while she was filming Me of Me. I sat there in awe watching her just doing,
Really?
So great. I was there for that, and I was there for the Denton number while they were filming that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like some of the music in Shock Treatment a little better than some of the Rocky songs. So, like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm admittedly not the hugest fan. It's one of the recurring gags on the podcast that I absolutely hate Shock Treatment. But at the very least, I will agree with you there. The music in Shock Treatment is
the music in Shock is real good.
Damn good.
It's good. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Because you also did the, you were shooting the behind the scenes kind of special when you were doing over there.
The Rocky Horror Treatment.
Yes, that.
Which the guy who produced it was really nice, really smart. And I remember flying to London. This was so sad. I woke up in London after being on a plane all night, and John Lennon's death was announced. And I heard it in London. And did that get me crazy? Because I was Beatles, too. Very big on the Beatles. I was 14 when the Beatles came out, so...
Hard not to be yeah, at that point. Well, speaking of projects that may or may not, Creatures of the Night 3, I'm going to ask you.
Oh, no.
No, never?
The problem with Creatures of the Night 2 is, if you don't know anything about Creatures of the Night 1, it's kind of a boring book, you know? And so Creatures 3, 20 years later, is like...
No. Well, I had to try.
Also, I'm 72.
No, fair.
In 2 hours.
Any wishes and hopes for the next? So now that Rocky is on the precipice of 50,
Is there anything that you like foresee for the 50th anniversary?
There'll be something because Lou Adler and I have not talked about it, but there's going to be something.
Is there anything that like you would like to see personally happen for the 50th?
Well, the thing is, so many things have happened over the years. What's there new, other than just have a memorial service for Jonathan Adams and Charles and Meatloaf
Right.
and Tim Curry in a wheelchair? You know, it's a shame. He gets around though. He's gone to a couple of fan conventions, and when we did that thing in where Los Angeles named it Rocky Horror Day. And that was really, that was an exciting time, actually. People were great.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine there was, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago when we had to lend our costumes to the Democrat convention for the virtual Rocky show. I ended up having to be the person on our cast to deliver some of the costumes to Rosario Dawson, who ended up being the person to play Magenta. It was literally incredible. She like invited me into her apartment and like we just hung out for like 3 hours. I was like, I'm hanging out with Rosario Dawson. I need to scream. But she was actually talking the next day when I had to go pick everything up from her about how full of life Tim is, despite everything that is holding him back right now. She was like, I fully expected to like just kind of like sit there and be like and mourn the fact that like we have this literal icon in this condition, but she was like, I felt as if I was talking to Tim pre-stroke. It was wild. It was incredible. And I was like, thanks, Rosario. That's really cool.
But Rosario was with Cory Booker for a while. Was that a real coupling?
I mean, she talked about him when I was there. And referred to him on a first name basis.
There's been rumors.
Yeah. But yeah, no, she referred to Cory like on a first name basis as if like I knew who he was. And I was like, this is strange. I need to leave Soho right now.
You mentioned Jonathan Adams. I did have a question about it because I know that after RockyCon 1, he did a set at the Duplex that you had hooked him up with.
Yes. Jonathan, we mentioned before that I had done stuff at the Duplex.
Yeah.
And Jonathan was coming for the convention, and he contacted me and said, is there a place that, I can do my one-man show? I said, well, actually, I work at this place called the Duplex. I can get you. And we discussed it, and he liked the idea of me being in his opening act and stuff like that. He's a very clever man. I saw him do the revival of Rocky on the West End, but I don't think he played Dr. Scott. I think he played the criminologist. I'm having a little blank on that. But he also did this show based on Tom Lehrer. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, he's the one that does the Vatican rag, genuflect, and stuff like that. Jonathan Adams was a very clever man and generous. I met him to the Rocky conventions, and I was coming to London for some Rocky stuff, to look for stuff and just hang out. And he said to me, "Oh, come stay with me in my house."
Oh, wow.
And I got there, and there was a note on the door that said he got called out of town for a show, so here are my keys, enjoy. He just left me his house for the week.
Wow.
Wild.
Yeah. He and I became good friends. He's a nice man. Was a nice man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was curious because being one of the cast members that has passed on, all I've got to go on are the recollections of other people. I read his autobiography, which is just such a weird Dada kind of like, I don't know what's true in here and what's not, kind of delightful kind of thing.
They really made him up for the movie, because if you ever see Jonathan Adams not as Dr. Scott, he doesn't look anything like him.
He really doesn't.
But Charles Gray looked exactly like he did.
I've always heard he never sees his own movies.
So I think just to kind of close out what we've been talking about for the past time, I think a nice kind of ending question that we can ask for you, Sal, is what advice do you have for future Rocky Horror Cast leaders?
Well, make sure you're in good stead with the theater owners.
So happy we switched.
Because if you get a bad theater owner, it screws everything up, screws your whole show up. Remember that there's a thin line these days with the Me movement and stuff like that. And even though some of the stuff that the MCs does in the beginning, some of it is, you just can't do that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But I get upset because there were innocent people being charged, and there were guilty people who are being let off the hook. And that always gets to me. You know?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm all for, no, you have to do it. Yeah.
Main point is, don't have favorites. Keep the peace. Keep everybody cool between each other. Like, learn to navigate between the different cliques. It's much like, it's kind of like being the president at like school or something like that. There's all these different, like the hippies sit here and this sit there. You need to be able to bring everybody together to create a beautiful show that's going to keep people coming back to the theater, and also keep people keep the audience people, because that's where you get the new blood, so you get them all psyched up. And when people see great performances, people are like, I want to do that. And that's where they get it. So they do it. Right? That's why I don't get upset when I see, like, anybody's just like, oh, that Fox thing, or it on Glee or something like that, that's a sacrilege. No, man, it's just not. To get new people in.
It's good.
Also, you got to be careful too, because in the early days, I never had to deal with social media, but you do now, and the thing is, you got to be careful. You got to be careful, because the most important thing is keeping Rocky alive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, you were the original person that said Rocky is going to be the movie of the 70s into the 80s and the 90s, and here we are in 2022.
I did another podcast for some old friend of Karen's, and at first I thought this is that podcast everybody's talking, but it turns out you're the guys everybody's talking about.
Rocky Talkie, give it a plug.
You're so amazing, you know that?
Phil said thank you, I
the
know.
The boy genius.
I'm just representing it. I learned no longer a boy, and definitely not a genius. I'm just making sure.
Educating future geniuses now.
I'm doing my best. It's the last day of school. Hurrah! Huzzah!
Was it really?
Yes, today is the last day of school.
I love that for you.
So yes, thank you. Yes,
I also came from my education job straight here, so I feel you.
Preach, my bro, preach.
Sal, thank you so much.
Oh, listen, I had a ball. Maybe I could do another one next year.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Say less.
I have a million.
Just bring the White Zinfandel and I'm good.
I'll do another one next week.
You want the best Rocky show I ever saw?
Oh, yes.
What is the best Rocky show that you've ever seen?
Milan, Italy.
What?
Really?
Yeah, they flew me out. There was an older man who was in love with Rocky, and he was friends with the cast. And he wrote to me and said, I'd like to bring you to Milan for a week and host our weekend shows. The Frank was the best I ever saw. I actually thought I was looking at Tim Curry the whole time.
Wow.
And they had little bits and things that were different than anything we did. Their time warp was impeccable. The audience was all in tune. That was great, and the other one was great, was the one in Japan. I came in 24 hours before the show, and I had to teach with a translator. I had to teach them what to do. And I thought, oh, this is going to be awful.
Yeah.
And they went home and studied, because they're very fastidious, and it was one of the best shows I ever saw.
That's the one that they toured with the Shadowcast, right? In Japan, like they went on to, or am I thinking of something else?
You think? Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the current Japanese cast is Lips, and they're all sorts of awesome. Just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from them in a while. Need to get my international Rocky up to snuff.
But I have seen some great. The creativity is unbelievable.
Amazing.